No, not actually. Not this particular project. What we talked about, and I run into him every once in a while over at the New World Center, in between concerts, was the programming, because he was, when he was taking over the New World, he was not interested in having concerts of just contemporary music, which they used to have. They used to have a series called Sounds of the Times, and it was just, works from whatever, from either the second half of the 20th century or the 21st century. And he felt that no, he thought that that should be more integrated and whatever. And so at that time I thought, no, I don't think that's such a good idea, especially since I run a festival of new music, which is just music from like the last 20 years or so, if that. Very new music. And I kept thinking, how would I present this work next to the work by Mozart or Beethoven or Brahms or whatever, or even Debussy. But to having so I ran into him a few times, and we had this conversation again, and he was, well, Orlando, this, I think this is a better way to integrate it. And then I said, yeah, but what about a piece like by John Cage? Let's say, you have a piece by John Cage for prepared piano. You're going to do that next to, a Mozart string quartet, or, or Mozart, whatever it might be. And he said, well, you're right. There are some 20th century, 21st century pieces that probably wouldn't really work very well, in those concerts. And I would have to really give that some thought as to where those would be presented, how those would be presented, and where, right? But since that time, to be honest with you, I've been impressed with the programming, like even the concert with my work coming up. And in fact, maybe there's even a better example. Even before Stéphane took over the artistic director's position, there was a concert right before the pandemic, in December of 2019, where I had to work for clarinet and string orchestra that was presented, and it was one of the and it was not a Sound of the Times concert. It was one of the chamber music series concerts that Michael Linville runs. And that was when MTT was still kind of over everything, and had a lot more control. Like Stefan doesn't have much to do with the chamber concerts. That's at least my understanding. He kind of lets Michael just Linville just, Michael, you just go do it, do what you're gonna do. I mean, he's aware of it, but he doesn't. Whereas with MTT would sit down with Michael Linville and go over everything, each one. Okay, what is this? All right, what about that? And then he would say, and then he would have his ideas. Well, how about this or how about that? It was like kind of a back and forth. Somehow my piece wound up for clarinet and string orchestra, on this concert. And there was one other contemporary piece by Timo Andres, who's a good young composer. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was percussion and piano, and that was on there. But everything else was Rimsky-Korsakov, Brahms. It was everything else was just repertoire. And frankly, I was kind of surprised at how well everything worked. To the point that when intermission came around and I went out, my piece was done right before intermission. I went out into the lobby area, the lounge. I was amazed at how I was mobbed by all these people coming over saying how much they love the piece, but they hate modern music, but they love my piece. Like I'm saying, well, if you love my piece, you don't hate modern music because my piece is modern. Well, I don't care. I don't care what you want to say. That's not what I'm used to. The modern pieces I hear, I couldn't stand, whatever. And so, I mean, this piece is kind of kind of attractive because the string players have to also play wind chimes and wine glasses. So there's this kind of whole atmosphere that the piece creates, along with the strings, obviously. Um, so there's a soloist, who doesn't play a million notes, but who's up there doing some things. There's a lot of colors and very timbral. It's a very colorful and timbral piece. So that was even before all this happened. I was still not convinced because I thought, these people are coming here to hear, Rimsky and Brahms, and they're hearing these pieces, that are very, very different from that world. But having been seeing what's been going on, certainly this year in the programming, they've been able to mix some of those pieces up, and I think if you do it right, it kind of works out all right. And so there's no concern whatsoever from me for the concert on January 26th with my piece, even though there's Brahms and what have you. And it's really kind of eclectic because the Paul de Sound piece is very kind of folkloric. So there's a folkloric piece, and then Chinese piece, which is cello solo with winds and influenced by, in some ways, Asian references. And then my piece with ballet and this whole, variety of references to the Holocaust and to other repression. Because what's been happening is I've been writing, I won't say a lot of pieces, but there's certainly more pieces than I had in my catalog before that referred to somehow reference repression in the world.